Welcome to the Modern CPA Success Show, where we're 100% focused on helping accounting firms achieve success. If you're an accounting firm owner who wants to learn how to provide virtual CFO services, then this podcast is for you.
Hello, and welcome to today's podcast. Today's podcast, we are replying to an email from our friend Jacob. He was curious about our onboarding process for new employees, especially those first 90 days. So this is Jamie, and once again, I'm joined by Zack and Adam because they're the best people for this topic. And we're going to talk about several different areas, but I think the area we want to start is kind of on the HR front. And really, what does Zack do during the onboarding process? So Zack, if you want to start and kind of go down the road of what you do for those when you first bring an employee in.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we want to make sure of when we have a new team member starting is that they really understand who we are as a company and how we operate. And, I think when we talk about the success of an individual on our team, we know that those things are clearly communicated to them from the start of their employment at Summit. So the first couple of weeks of an employee being on our team, we really fill up their calendar. We want them to spend as much time as they possibly can with our team. We want them to spend as much time as they can getting up to speed on our technology, the processes that we use, our clients. So the first couple of weeks, I spend an hour or two with the new employee just talking about core values. We live and breathe by our core values. This is how we operate. This is what makes us unique as a company. And so this is kind of part of infusing our DNA of who we are on a new team member. And so we talk about, our 6 core values of curiosity, humor, collaboration, adaptability, empowerment, and candor. So we go over those, and not only just the words and the definitions that we've come up with, but, what does the operationalized behavior look like behind each of those core values? We talk about, what that behavior is when we are living into it at our best, and what that behavior might look like when we're stressed out and needing to make sure we realign. And so we do that. We have a new team member spend time with our partners, with Adam and Jody, hearing, the story of how Summit started, really understanding who we are, how we work as a company. Both of those guys are really unique and different. And so we want to make sure that they understand our leadership and understand really how to relate well with each other on the team. And so, from a cultural standpoint, we do that. We talked a lot about assessments in our last podcast. And during the hiring process, we're using those really to get data. We're using those to really understand who the person is. Now we've brought them on our team. We want to use these as a point of investment in them and their personal growth and development. So with emotional intelligence, we are going to go over that with them in depth. We're going to help them understand the results, what their strengths are, what their blind spots might be, and really help them understand how to continue building this skill, how to use this in working with our clients, how to use emotional intelligence in working with the team. We talked about Colby and instinctual drive and DISC. So with our pod structure, with our cohort structure, teams sort of working closely together, we're facilitating a meeting at the beginning of their time at Summit to really understand not only their own style, their working style, what's true for them, but then the working style of their team, and introducing them to their team and sort of facilitating a meeting with that group to better help each other understand how to work with each other, how to communicate, and really trying to set them up for continued success in their role at Summit.
Yeah, I think one of the unique things there too, Zack, is you said not only do we do it for them to, for self-awareness, but then also with the team, but we also do it with the client as well, right? We use My Disc, My Everything Disc, I think is the technical name there for it. And we use that to identify, clients that they might be working with as well, just as kind of some more background information that maybe doesn't show up on a financial statement, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we're doing a lot of work right now, even to really identify what's the working style for each of our clients, so that when a new employee comes in, when a team is working with a client, they understand how to communicate best to them. They understand, what's probably going to be most effective in that relationship with that client, again, so that we can serve that client best.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things, I know you talked about core values earlier on, is I feel like all of our core values are both external and internal. So if I'm thinking about my any core value, I can think about how does that apply to a client and how does that apply to my other employees. Adam, do you want to dig in on that a little bit? You don't need to walk through all the core values, but just kind of curious about how that kind of came to and how we express that to our new employees.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is exactly what you said. I mean, we have the definition, we have the word, everybody kind of knows what it means, and in terms of humor, I'll just grab one. And it's really important to us that you can take a joke here because we're always teasing each other, giving each other a hard time. Like Zack there, I heard him say that I was unique and different. I know what that means, man. I know what that's code for. So I'm
just trying to be candid with you, Adam.
Yeah, there you go. There's another one. Thanks. In a passive aggressive way. Thanks. So no, they, you got to be able to joke and have fun around here. I mean, that's what we do as a team all day long. Likewise, we like to exhibit that same core value with our clients. So if we're not the stuffy accountants, and I don't think most people these days are anyway, but we try to bring that personality and bring that all those core values to our clients. So having hard conversations, being candid with them, cracking up, having a joke. We usually start out the first few minutes just kind of having a good time with all of our clients. So it's just important to live it out, not only internally but externally, as you mentioned.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, and that's a great way to think about the core values, and that's the way I've always thought about them as well. But kind of digging into the calendar a little bit more. So Zack kind of talked about his aspect of it. So obviously, as the director of the accounting group, if someone in my department starts, really the calendar for me is I try to meet with them the first day. I sit down with them and I explain kind of just the working office. It's kind of like the office tour. So we have a virtual office. So I kind of explained to them some of the ways the virtual office works and what certain emojis mean and all that stuff and exactly how that works. So I kind of give them that virtual tour. And then I just walk them through a very high level input of all of our tools of, okay, these are the things you're going to be using in your first 2 weeks here at Summit. We have what we call a change log. And basically inside of there is all of the clients they work on, all the projects we're working on, and really any communication that we need between the CFO's director group and the seniors. And so basically I kind of walk them through that and how they'll be spending a lot of time in there. I spend a little bit of time on Jetpack. I spend a little bit of time in all of our tools that we use at a high level. But then the other part that we do is we have process owners and so specialists for all of the tools we use, because I think I've mentioned this in previous podcasts, but we're always changing and we're always moving and we're always dynamic. And so, we want to make sure that people understand the tools we're using. And so basically when we have a new tool we take on, so for example, one of the recent tools we took on was a cash flow tool, and we're actually going to have the owner of the cash flow tool on as a guest here pretty soon. But when we first took that on, we had someone who's the expert of that. And so that way, when a new person gets trained, they're not having me walk them through everything. They're having someone else. They're having a peer walk them through that tool, how it works, how the input works. And now again, this person may be coming in with only 4 clients and none of those clients might have cash flow, but at least they've seen the tool, they understand how it works, and they know who they can go to for questions. And so that's the other part of the calendars. We fill a lot of their hours up with these trainings with specialists in all of our tools. And that includes Bill.com, it includes Coco, it includes any tool that we use a lot, they're going to get trained on, and just an hour of talking and being able to ask questions on that.
And I think the cool thing there is they get exposure to a lot of different people on the team, and then they know who to go to for those specific things. So I know whenever we were brick and mortar, and I think this is a big thing that a lot of firms do, is they have a mentor. Well, the only problem with that is, one, the mentor is not always available. The mentor doesn't always know everything. And it's one of those things where it's fine. They'll pass you off to different people as needed. So, and that works out okay. But I think this really exposes people to a lot more people right out of the gate, and it gives them that go-to list, and they don't feel guilty about going to them for that specific thing because they're already designated as the expert of that tool, and they're the one that have, trained and coached them on that.
Yeah, definitely. And the other part of it is the experts take responsibility for that tool. And so, a lot of our experts really take pride in the tool that they are the owner of, and they have slides put together. They have videos of certain aspects of it recorded. And so the other part that we always worry about is, we have them about 20 hours of meetings for trainings for these tools. We probably have them about 10 hours of meetings where they're introduced to the client and they're learning about that. But what are they going to do at that lunchtime when there's no one around and they have nothing to do. In a brick and mortar office, you could just go ask someone. But when you're in a virtual office, sometimes you're like, what should I be doing? And so they can just pop into a folder and say, I want to learn more about Bill.com. And there's videos in there, there's write-ups in there, there's slideshows, and they can go and just learn a little bit about it. So the people that are those owners are also responsible for keeping those updated, which I think has been a big win for us.
Yeah. Definitely the three-legged stool is, culture, the tech and tools. And then the other piece is the client background that you were talking about, making sure that they're spending time with their CFO or whomever, depending on what level the person is, so that they can get a feel for who the client is, leveraging some of the information that Zack worked with on the culture side, and then reviewing financials and things of that nature. I think that's important. And we kind of took the mentor concept there, and we have somebody on our team that's just designated to just be available for somebody. Because what we found, especially in a virtual environment, I think this is true. If you think back to whenever you just started a job, you always kind of spin a little bit and you're waiting for that person to become available. And rather than have somebody sitting there for a couple hours, say you're done with your videos, now it's time just to get work done. We want them to get unstuck fast. We don't want a 5-second question to hold them up for an hour. So we have somebody sitting in their office pretty much all day, every day, whether it's people that they're working with on these specific things, or if there's not, there's like this person that just kind of lurks in the mist that they can go hang out with a couple hours a day just to make sure they're moving along. That's been helpful.
Yeah, I think it's been very helpful. And I think to that point, what we learn is with every employee we onboard, there's something we can take away from it. And so that's actually a recent change we made was, we had an employee we just hired, and it just worked out that employee was working with only one CFO on 5 clients, and they got up to speed so quickly. We're like, what was the secret here? How did this person figure stuff out so quickly? And we're like, well, it's because she had someone she could talk to 100% of the time and had access to 100% of the time. So she never got stuck on any questions because they were working on all the clients together. So that's when we kind of created this role where basically one of our employees who understands all our processes, understands all our tools, and is just really good at explaining stuff, designates 9 hours of his week where he's just sitting in the conference room available for questions. So that way people aren't spending time spinning their wheels, and they can go in there and ask a question to him of anything and really get it moved forward. And that's been something we've changed. But I think the point there is we are constantly, just like everything we do, we're constantly evaluating this process and trying to think of ways to make it better. And we're not like sitting on our hands at all.
Yeah, it's definitely not perfect by any means. It's always evolving. But so far that seems to be a good approach. And it all starts with the calendar. I think that we had intentions of doing all these things, and we had always done it before, but being really deliberate up front with that calendar, booking off the time, telling people this is what you're accountable for, and then you, Jamie, can look at that calendar and go, hey, this isn't full. Like, what's this person going to be doing this other 10 or 15 hours? Because, eventually people find their way into their work and they're fine. They don't need that. But that first week or two, especially in a virtual environment, but I think it's true for a brick and mortar as well. They just need that, something constantly to keep them going.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time that first month looking at their calendar and then checking in with them, probably every other day, just saying what's going on, what's new, are you keeping busy, do you have any questions? And so I think having me in this role, just watching that constantly, and again, especially those first 2 to 3 weeks, to make sure they're not getting bored.
Yeah, and I think, Jamie, just going back to a point that you made, we're always iterating the process. I think one of the best mechanisms that we have for that is the feedback process that we have. We are really intentional. I think Summit is one of the most intentional places I've ever seen with making sure that new employees have a really intentional, very consistent feedback tool. And what we do there is every 2 weeks, we meet with a new employee and every person who works with them. So people who supervise them. So if they're a senior accountant, their CFOs, their peers that they're working with, and we ask them a couple of questions. What should this person start doing? What should they stop doing? And what should they continue doing? So we're, reinforcing the great things they're doing. We're talking about things that maybe they need to start doing. Maybe this is week 4. We're wanting to throw them in the deeper end a little bit. We're talking about things that maybe they need to improve, things that they're, maybe being short-sighted on. This is a great tool for encouragement as well, but this gives them real-time feedback. one of our core values is candidness. And so for the first 90 days, we're meeting every 2 weeks with this person. And then we meet sort of every 3 months after that until their first year. And then we kind of get into our normal review process from that point. But I've just learned not only is this a great feedback tool for them, but it gives us great feedback in how they're doing, helping understand things that they need, making sure that we're even asking those questions of them that they're answering for themselves and for the team during that process as well.
I think that's the funny part. Speaking of evolving process, the start, stop, and continue that he's talking about, we always ask them to self-evaluate themselves, like what they should start and stop. But I think one of our, it wasn't too long ago, but one of our team members misinterpreted that and started talking about what we need to stop, start, and continue with. And I just thought it was kind of cool. It's like, he sat there and gave us kind of 2 or 3 minutes on what we needed to be better at with him. And we're like, you know what? That's a good addition. So now you give us one of yourself. We want a little bit of self-evaluation, but then go for it. Give us one too. If we're being candid, let's unpack all of it. So I thought that was kind of a cool addition that we didn't really expect going into it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing about it is these meetings are quite short too. It's not like they're hour-long meetings. I think they're scheduled for 15 to 30 minutes. And it's a very small time investment that we get a ton out of, and everybody's talked about, I think we talked about in our last podcast, it's a big investment to hire someone. And so you want to make sure they work. And so this is a big part of it. Within those 90 days, we want to make sure that they're on the right path and we have them set up for success. And so that's just 15 minutes every 2 weeks. It's crazy what a world difference that's made for us. And that's been a really good change. And to Adam's point, just getting the feedback of, what I'm missing during my onboarding is this. You guys have a ton of software. How am I supposed to learn all that in the first 2 weeks? And so that's kind of where we came up with the experts, and just the feedback we get has been super helpful during that process.
Yeah. From my perspective, some of the more frustrating things is whenever people complain about other people not getting stuff done. And then, it's like, oh, well, clearly Jamie's not working out. We got to let him go. But nobody gives him the critical feedback that he needs to either improve and sometimes it's just not a good fit. It's not a matter of oh, I didn't know. It's you're just not going to work out. But the whole point of these is to also be candid, which is why that core value training right whenever you come in, because some people take them as attacks, and they're definitely not meant to be. And I think the team always struggles with a stop anyway, because the person's new, they like them. They're the one that helped hire them in a lot of cases. So they always have really positive, encouraging things to say. So it's not like a beat up meeting, but whenever you do have to have those critical feedback sessions, you want to make sure that obviously they've had the training and self-awareness going into it so they don't take it the wrong way. And then, because like I said, the biggest thing is for us, I know it frustrated Jody as well, my partner, but whenever somebody be like, okay, well, we got to let Jamie go. And then Jamie's completely taken off guard and surprised. Nobody's ever mentioned anything. It's this avoids that.
So Zack, I have a question for you on this one. So oftentimes we get into these meetings, and if we do the, obviously we have two negatives there, kind of the start and the stop, and then obviously continue is the positive part. But if how much of the feedback that we get are on those start or stops is developed, are things you can develop versus things that are just personality traits that you can't develop out of people?
That's a really good question. For most of the time, I see our team really being helpful in helping them understand what's the issue. At the end of the day, making sure clear is kind, unclear is unkind. Are we being really clear on expectations? So, oftentimes with the start, for example, it's sort of hey, I want you to start doing this because I know you're now comfortable with this tool, or I know you're now comfortable with this client. And oftentimes the stops are, hey, I noticed you kind of did this thing this way, or you said this in a client meeting. We want to make sure that we're not doing that. I would say the majority of the time, they're hard or soft skills. They're technical or, sort of the people skills that can be developed. They're not, things that you can't change about yourself. We're not going to go into that. And if we do, that's why one of us is there to kind of help redirect that conversation. And two, I think sometimes pushing our team, the team that have been there for a long time with this new employee, to make sure they are being candid. If in a coaching session, a CFO says something to me about, an issue they're having with a team member, and we are in a start, stop, and continue, they don't have that conversation. Like, I don't struggle with candidness as much, nor does Adam. So, we're going to say like, hey, I know you've been having some issues here. Let's talk about it. We want to make sure that we are being really clear, really kind about how we're delivering that message. But the whole goal is to help people succeed in this role, to give them the tools that they need to do that, because it's really expensive to hire the wrong people. So we want to do everything we can to help make sure that they can succeed in their role.
Yeah, and I think that just to your point there, I think the other thing about the nice thing about having these meetings every 2 weeks is if we give them one feedback, okay, you missed 3 deadlines last week, and we need you to get better at that. We can't miss deadlines with clients. Can we help you get organized or help you understand deadlines better? And then the next 2 weeks when we meet with them, if they got 100% better at that, it shows that okay, they are willing to adjust, they are willing to learn, they kind of have that growth mindset instead of just like sitting around pouting and being like, oh, I've missed deadlines, I'm not going to make it here at Summit. So I think that's the other thing I think we learned through our process of meeting so frequently is, do they have that growth mindset? Are they going to take this feedback and get better because of it? So that's been super important for us, I believe.
Yeah, you really see the adaptability coming to light there. And we're even embodying collaboration there as well.
For sure. So I'm gonna throw our email address out there real quick. So like I said at the beginning of this podcast, we got an email for a topic, and we run with it pretty quickly. We were always looking for topics, always looking for things to talk about and questions. So appreciate that email and would love to get some more. So that email address is cpa@summitcpa.net. Again, cpa@summitcpa.net. So would love to hear from you. And again, that email address is there for you. So we appreciate starting to get some emails in there, and it's really helping us make our show better. So again, a couple minutes left here. Adam, Zack, any other thoughts we have in our onboarding process that we haven't covered yet, or any other things our listeners should know?
I would say document it. Make sure that we've really worked hard at that. And I think that that's really been helpful to make sure that we're not missing anything during the onboarding process. There's a great book, First 90 Days by Michael Watkins. It was published by Harvard Business Review Press. Just a great book for onboarding leaders, having especially if you're hiring leaders, having them even read that during their first 3 months. There's a lot of great tools out there. Make sure that you're making use of them.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, I would just say that, and you just can't overstate it, I guess, this is mission critical to success. Those first 90 days, just like it is in working with your clients, onboarding is so important. So just be deliberate. I mean, I think I probably overused that word a little bit, but that was kind of the point with our calendar, is just being very deliberate about making sure that we do everything that we say we're going to do, including the documentation on the back end, just to make sure that we give everybody, all the tools and opportunity to succeed as much as possible. It's in our best interest and theirs. So.
Yeah, no, great points. And just, I think my final thought that Zack kind of reminded me of with his was, if there's a book or two that really embodies your culture or your company, or something that you kind of use as a founding principle, like you can definitely throw that their way too. I was just talking with a new employee today and was recommending a book to her. And I think that sometimes those kind of give them an idea of what you're going for. Of, okay, this is a book that, we really try to follow when it comes to our clients. You should definitely check this out and make them, read it. Because again, these first 2 to 3 weeks, the majority of the people coming in are going to have more time than they will later on when they start getting busy. So it's a good time to have them read those type of things. I appreciate you guys coming in again and talking about this topic, and hopefully it was helpful for all our listeners. So thanks a lot, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.